Great Blacks in Wax Open Forum, and I'm your host, Margaret Locklear. And my guest today is Mr. Clarence Allen, who is with the Baltimore Community Television. He's the CEO and founder of that program. So Clarence, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm a local boy, grew up here in Baltimore, went to Northwestern High School, Loyola College, went off to the Air Force, did my thing, came back to Baltimore and got involved in politics. In 1974, I ran Clarence Mitchell's campaign, Larry Young, so I've been involved in politics. Currently, I'm involved with Martin O'Malley's campaign. So I've done a lot of things in Baltimore, but speeding forward, one of the greatest things I got involved in 1992, I was fortunate to be out in San Francisco. And I was out there for a year, and I discovered public access TV. Didn't know what it was, and I was totally amazed. And got back to Baltimore just when TCI was negotiating a deal with Baltimore City and bringing cable to Baltimore. And what a lot of folks don't know is that the FCC, or the Federal Communications Law, requires any place that there is a cable entity, there must be a means where citizens, regular citizens, can have freedom of speech, can say what they want to say over the airways, a la public access TV. And since that time, I've been working diligently to try to get public access TV what it deserves, and that is a good form in Baltimore City.
Okay, so do you currently have any programs on cable access?
I personally don't have any shows on. I've been involved with the local producer, Sir Andre. Sir Andre's probably got, my goodness, off the top of my head, I think he has about 10 shows on public access TV. So I've been doing a lot of executive producing. But now that there is a new franchise agreement signed with Baltimore City with Comcast, I'm about to get much more vigorous in putting shows on. And one of the new shows that I want to put on is going to be a show that's going to be called The Raw Truth.
Oh, okay.
And I came up with this idea for The Raw Truth because I've, like a lot of people, I've looked at TV shows where people have been interviewed and you will ask the person a direct question and they won't tell you the truth. They'll either evade it or they'll lie or whatever they'll do, but they won't tell you the truth. And I kept saying, why can't there be a show where people know, coming on that show, they're going to have to tell the truth. And as a viewer, I would love to see a show like that, that I know that what's being spoken is actually true.
Okay, so what's the format for the show? I mean, how are you going to?
Well, one of the things we're going to do, I'm currently looking for a host or co-host for the show. But one of the things we're going to do, just like the Apollo, they had Sandman, when the person was bombing and they weren't being so good, and Sandman come out and start dancing and they hike them off. Well, when a person agrees to be on this show to be interviewed, when it gets to the point that maybe they're starting to evade the truth or it's starting to sound like a lie, we're going to have our own Sandman. And we're going to ask them to leave. So the segue being, if you can make it on The Raw Truth throughout an entire interview, then you must have told the truth, because if you started lying, we're kicking you.
Okay, well, how's that going to be? How's it going to be set up? I mean, we're going to have like a series of judges. Who determines if that person is telling the truth?
That's some of the flux. We want to have a live audience, and we may allow the audience to determine, does it sound the truth to you? And if they determine, well, maybe it doesn't, we may have, or a la the Gong Show, where people could actually gong them off. But the idea is we want people to understand that this show is going to be about the truth, whatever it is. For example, when there was issues going on in Baltimore City about the school system, and they were talking about, well, gee, they have mismanaged, or we are missing some millions and millions of dollars. As a citizen, just as a regular person, the first thing I said to myself was, well, who's in charge of the money? You know, I mean, that wasn't a hard thing. I wanted to know, well, who was in charge of the money? Nobody would answer that question. Well, if that was the raw truth, we would have gotten an answer to that question.
Okay, by the means of going to the horse's mouth, so to say, you would have that person.
Going directly to the person who's responsible, or going to those people who know. Because that's the whole idea. You know, I think shows where people come on and you ask them questions, and they, good politicians, for example, know how to ignore a question. No matter what you ask them, they're going to tell you exactly what they want you to know. So you can ask them, how's the weather today? And he can say, well, you know, we've been doing a lot of good things in physical management. It has nothing to do with what you ask them. Exactly. But that's how they know how to evade the truth. On the raw truth, you won't be able to evade it. Or people in the community are going to know, you got kicked off the raw truth, you must have been lying.
Okay, and so what are you trying to accomplish once the truth is out there?
Well, I think information, true information gives everyone an opportunity to form their opinions based on the best information available. And the best information is the truth. Simple as that. I think if you're having a politician and he's running for office, if you know the truth about him, then your decision to vote or not vote for him is going to be predicated on something that's actual and factual. I think education is one thing, but knowing the truth and having good information is paramount. You've got to have good information to form good decisions.
Excellent. Well, what are some of the other issues or topics here?
Well, another topic in this case could be HIV education. There's a lot of myths that are going around about HIV education. I heard on the radio the other day there's a woman, she's involved in the EO, and she's determined that she wants to do away with all the different terminologies about HIV. In other words, there are different segments of the population that are involved in HIV. There are men who involve themselves with men. There's a segment now called the down low, and people are saying, well, gee, this is information that if people have it, they can form better decisions about it. Well, she's decided that she doesn't want all those different denunciations. She wants it to be just use a condom and everything's cool. Well, that sounds good, but that's not actually the real truth. So we want to be able to have people who can come on and give you the real inside truth about situations. The so-called down low, how long it's been going on, who's really involved in it, those kinds of things. So you can take the raw truth, and maybe cut you off, but you can take the raw truth and you can apply it to any area of society.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a break for a moment. We'll be right back. As I said, we're taping from the Great Blacks in Wax Open Forum, and my guest today is Mr. Clarence Allen, who is the CEO of the Baltimore Community Television. And as I told you before, we've had audiences, and we have an audience today.
Good evening. Mr. Allen, I think it's a great idea about your television show. We definitely need something like that in Baltimore, very much. My question to you right now is about public access. Why does Baltimore need a public access station? And what has been the issue behind our not having one? And are there other areas locally, regionally that are currently has public access? Why they are not here?
One of the reasons I believe Baltimore needs public access TV is because we're talking about freedom of speech. We're talking about Baltimore is a city of communities. Issues in Park Heights aren't the same issues in Cherry Hill. Issues in Cherry Hill aren't the same issues in Evanston Village. Citizens in those areas should have the right to speak out and let folks know what they're interested in. They're not going to find the time to do that on Channel 13 and 11 and 2 because it costs money to be on those stations. Public access TV is about freedom of speech. It's about freedom of speech, and it's about community citizens talking about issues that are important to them. That's what public access has an opportunity or allows an opportunity for citizens to achieve. That's number one. Public access history in Baltimore has been one that hasn't been the best. It's getting better, and the future looks bright. Public access TV in Baltimore right now is going through a flux. We just signed a brand new franchise agreement with Comcast. So there is money available. My goal and my hope is that soon there can be a brick and mortar place where any citizen of Baltimore can walk in and say, hey, look, I've got an issue I want to talk about, and I want to talk about it on the airwaves, and producers and equipment and production facilities will be made available so that they can do that. That's the key, and that's the whole slight to public access TV. The reason it hasn't happened in the past, the last contract agreement signed some 20 years ago, it wasn't the best agreement. That's water under the bridge. We're talking about a new day, we're talking about a fresh set of funds, and we're talking about more educated people about public access. I think there's some people in this audience who mentioned before we went on, they're interested in having a show. I encourage everybody, step up, come out, think about it, say your piece.
Thank you. Well, I had a question, but we do have one in New York from the...
Mr. Allen, I'm a musician, and I was wondering, how can musicians or poets or artists get more involved with public access TV?
30 miles down the road, Washington, D.C., or DC TV, is probably the premier creme de la creme idea what a public access TV station should be about. I took a tour of that station not too long ago. You can walk into DC TV as a citizen of the District of Columbia and say, hey, I got an idea for a show and I want to do it. And they take you from your idea, they sit you down, they bring in writers, they bring in producers. The facility has tremendous equipment, tremendous state-of-the-art facilities, and your show goes from idea to on-screen. Now, any musicians here in Baltimore for a long time has been a city where clubs and musicians went hand in hand. You could see live music in Baltimore 7 nights a week, and it's coming back. But I think those musicians need more and more exposure, they need more and more performing. Whereas maybe 200 or 300 people could see you at a club, how many folks could see you in a public access TV show? Lots of people. Another thing people don't know, we share tapes. If we do a show here locally in Baltimore, I might send that tape to Pittsburgh, it might end up in LA, Tennessee, Mississippi, Chicago. So therefore we're sharing, because I want to know what's going on in Chicago. They send their tapes here, we air it on public access. So what basically a person needs is an idea and a willingness to say, I'm going to get it done. You can call me at BCTV, 443-801-7739. We can talk about it. There's some other venues around town, but public access TV is alive and it's getting better.
Okay. Well, if there are some people who have programs in mind, what steps do they, I know you just explained some of it, but if they're not quite sure where to go, are you the person that they can talk to?
Well, certainly, I have no problem in helping guide people in the right direction. I think one of the things, if you're a person and you have an idea, try to engage your idea with some of your friends, family members, co-workers, and get a group of people who have the same vision you do, because you're going to need some help. Underwriting is something that never hurts in Baltimore City. You can have people who couldn't maybe get a commercial on Channel 13 or Channel 11 because it costs a lot of money. But maybe you can sit down with them and they can agree to do services in kind, provide different things that you might need, whether it be equipment, whether it be clothing, whether it be a place to, as the Great Blacks and Wax is a great venue for shooting a TV show. So these are kinds of things. Get some people enthused and then sit down and put on paper what you want to do. Go from there.
Wonderful, wonderful. It looks like we have another question here.
It's important to me to talk about music in the schools and how the children are getting it. And I know how important it is to have music in your mind. It helps you to work out problems. It will enhance their education if they are involved in music. It helps them to count time, all sorts of things involved in the 3 R's.
A great idea. The first thing I'm going to say is, why not have your own show? Why not have your own show? See, the whole thing about public access is freedom of speech. What I might want to talk about might not be what you want to talk about. I think certainly music, education, music, helping children to get a sense of who they are, a sense of self-worth is a fantastic idea. So why have me muddle it up when you've already got it down? Why not I just think about executive producing your show? Let you do it. Let you get out there and be in front of the camera and let people know what you're talking about. That's what public access is all about. Having an idea and having a place to speak.
Good question.
Thank you.
Okay, and so what are some of your explaining to us about how folks can get involved in on the cable access?
Well, I think, again, it's about having an idea, having something to say. The whole emphasis, the whole idea about public access came about, goes all the way back to colonial days, when a person could stand up on a soapbox in the middle of the square and say, the king has no clothes. Well, in that case, just about everybody in the community would hear you. Well, today, if I went down to Lexington Market and stood up and said, the king has no clothes, just the people coming to get their lunch might hear me. But to make it fair, now, if I can do it across the airwaves, hundreds and thousands of people can hear me. So my freedom of speech rights become more empowered. I think if you keep the idea that public access is about freedom of speech, then people really get to understand that your idea, your concept is just as important as mine or anybody else's. Public access, you don't have to have an idea that's earth-shattering. You may just want to do a show about gardening. You may say, you know, I just want to come on and tell people how to keep their roses from dying. You have a right to do that. And I think, when I think about young people, and public access TV can be a great vehicle, we have a lot of young people who stand on corners and they're engaged in pharmaceutical sales. I'll just use that as a better way.
Okay.
Now, how are you going to entice those folks to come off the corner? Well, all those kids on the corner are into hip-hop. They're into rap and they're into videos. Well, we could entice you by saying, I tell you what, you can continue to do pharmaceutical sales and run the risk of going to jail, but why don't you come off and do a music video? Or why don't you come off and do a rap video? The idea is if they come off the corner and come into a studio or to a facility to learn how to do that, they're going to have to know how to do what? Read and write. They're going to have to know something about math. So there's a double-edged sword there. We can use freedom of speech TV as a way to entice young people to come off the corner, learn some things, and also express themselves. So public, you're not going to do that on a commercial TV station. They got to sell soap. They got to sell cars. Public access doesn't have to sell anything. The idea is to come on and get your idea, your freedom of speech moment or moments done. That's what it's all about.
Okay. Well, I understand that, well, it's kind of, in normal studios is expensive. And so how would they access the equipment necessary to put on whatever their project or program is?
Again, public access, by virtue of the way it's supposed to operate, money has been set aside by Comcast, paid to the city of Baltimore, to facilitate public access ventures. That includes equipment, that includes access to getting things produced, that includes access to studios. Now here in Baltimore at the moment, the public access venue doesn't have its own studio. That's coming. When it's up and running the way it should be, a person, a citizen of the city of Baltimore should be able to walk into a brick and mortar facility and say, hey look, I want to put a show on. And they are then not Wall Street, but they're escorted through the process of how this is done. And now, when we get back to underwriting, let's say you put on a show that's a very popular show. People like it. One thing about public access, they know exactly who's watching because everything comes through the cable box. So they know who's watching and who's not. Now, that doesn't mean that your show has to have anybody but your grandma and your two cousins watching for you to get it aired. However, if you do put on a show that's popular, that people like, now you have an opportunity to have some people underwrite you. And if they underwrite you and you're able to take those funds from the underwriting and you can add to the ambiance of your show, better sets, better equipment, things like that. So you're talking about public access. It can start out from just a little idea and it can blossom and grow into something really, really spectacular. But the point is that everybody's opportunity to say what it is they want to say, that's what's most important. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It doesn't have to be something that's going to be phenomenal. It just has to be what you want to speak about.
Okay. One of my questions also is, what about training at these at the public access? Would they be able to provide training for these people who don't have any experience on programming?
That's one of the elements of public access. Also, is you're going to have to join and become a member. Just like if you watch MPT, the first thing they want you to do is what? Join. Become a member of Maryland Public TV. Okay, and those membership dues allow funds to be put together where training can be offered and people can learn how to produce. They can learn how to write. They can learn how to operate the camera. And that's the whole idea again. This is a process that begins with one small step, and that step is just deciding to something that you want to say, and there's some place for you to say.
Okay, so these people who would like provide the training, they would be like volunteers?
Some would be volunteers and some would be people who work for the nonprofit entity that's going to eventually run public access TV.
Excellent. Well, we do have an audience. Let's see if we have any more questions. As a matter of fact, we do. How about that?
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
Mayor. I do have a question, and I do have an idea. I have an
Great,
idea
great.
to bring together the African art and culture in the Baltimore community.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it would be wonderful to showcase so many performing artists that are here in this community. How do you feel about that idea?
One of the ways to do that, again, is to contact some artists. And one of the ways to do that is to go out to some of the venues and get those artists interested and say, look, I'd love to put you on TV. One thing, when you approach people and you tell them I love to put you on TV, you get their attention. They say, me? You want to put me on TV? Yes, I want to put you on TV. And when you do, once you do that, you sit down and get a camera in front of them. And I'm encouraging people. There are handheld video cameras that you can get from Woolworth, from Kmart. Get the camera, start shooting some stuff. Don't even worry about being an expert. Just start putting it on film. There's always a process called editing that can be done later. Just start get your hands on the camera and start shooting some stuff. And when you do, the bug's gonna bite you, and you're off and running. And if you need help, my number's available. Give me a call, and we can talk about it.
Well, as you said, there is a process, but who determines what programming? Because you're still, even in freedom of speech, there's still certain parameters that you can't cross over.
But again, public access TV is driven by the community itself. For example, I said again before, there are issues that are important to people in Cherry Hill that people in Edmondson Village don't deal with. There are issues that are important to people in Park Heights that people in Cherry Hill don't deal with. So the communities themselves determine what's important to them and determines how those particular venues are going to be viewed. Now, when it comes to getting something on TV, it's equal to everybody. So that means that if you submit a show, you are eventually going to get an opportunity for your show to air. Now, if your show is popular and people like it, now you've got an opportunity for your show to air on a regular basis. And I think all of that's predicated by who's viewing, who's watching, and who's enjoying the show.
So that would put a time lock, per se, on your particular show?
I believe the way they do it in Washington, D.C., a time lock depends on how many people are viewing your show. Because again, because it's cable, they can determine immediately how many people are watching. So if I've got a show where 1,500 people a week are watching this show, and I've got another show where 10 plus Granny's watching it, well, okay, Granny's show still gets to air, but it may air once a month. Whereas this show's got 1,500 people watching it, it may already have set the precedent and has already decided by virtue of you watching the show that it should be aired more than that, more than once a month, maybe 4 times a month. So how often your show airs usually depends on just how popular and how good it is. And I think that's fair.
What about some of the other projects you may be working on?
Well, one of the other projects we're working on, we're looking to do something for the Latino and Caribbean communities in Baltimore, which is a large segment, large population here. And one thing about that community, they're very supportive. They support one another. So support means viewership, which means a good show that would address itself to a lot of their issues and concerns. Shouldn't have any problem getting viewership. That's one of the things. I think also what I'd like to see is communities themselves. Park Heights have a show that's about Park Heights. You know, Mount Vernon have a show that's about Mount Vernon, because Baltimore is a city of communities. And I'd love to see more community type shows.
Not meaning to cut you off, but ironically, when you said Latino community, for the last 2 years, they held a cable show out of there called the Urban Idol Contest, and I was participant. And we would air like every Sunday. We would tape every Sunday at the Latin Palace, and they are very, very much oriented to public access, and they are very, like you said, very supportive. So yeah. You know, and I like the idea of the diverse cultures, because I think it kind of brings us back together closer as a community once we understand each other's cultures.
I think
you
so.
know, and break down the fear and, you know, the unknown, so, yeah.
Well, we're more alike than we are different, and one of the ways to do that is to start interacting, talking about it, viewership, having shows that will let someone from the Latin community really know something about people who live in other communities that maybe they haven't visited through the safety of your TV screen. It's a fantastic way to get to know people and maybe give you enough confidence to want to venture out and see something. People who see the Latin Palace on TV say, well, you know, I never knew that show, that club was there.
It's
I'm
awesome.
going to take a chance and go see it. That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Opening up and exposing ourselves to one another.
Exactly. Plus, well, I'm sure you're not aware, but my surname, I'm a part of the Lumpy tribe.
Oh,
and that's
okay.
another thing that they've taken the American Indian community out of our community, and they do a lot of performing in like Howard and Arundel County. And I'd like to see them be able to come back and bring back. There's also the American Indian Studies Center, which people are not aware of. It's more like of our, what do you call it, travel, you know, and tourism.
Okay.
They should be a part of that as well,
Okay.
to know that there's an extensive American Indian community in Baltimore. So, again, I want to thank you.
Well, it was fun. It was fun. Unfortunately, I had to be not as active in public access TV out front. I had to do a lot of things behind the scenes for the last few years. But now, with the new franchise agreement's been signed, you know, I'm ready to go. So again, I'm looking for a gorgeous, beautiful individual to be host, but you got to have the nerve for the raw truth. So give us a call.
And again, folks, I want to thank you for joining me. This is Margaret Locklear coming to you from the Great Blacks and Waxes, and this is the Great Blacks and Wax Open Forum. And we'll see you next time. And don't forget to visit our gift shop. There are gifts for your family, friends from all over the world. You want to share with your friends and family. And if you'd like to visit the museum, it is open Monday through Friday. And call the number at the bottom.